Hi, my name's Rob Ashton. I'm a dock worker from Vancouver. And I want to ask you something. Who here is struggling with rent? Who here is struggling with the cost of groceries? Who's worried about the state of the planet that our kids are going to inherit? And honestly, who's just plain tired of being screwed by liberals and conservatives? Me too. That's why I'm running for leader of the NDP. I've had enough of the broken system when the ruling class profits off our backs. Groceries cost a damn fortune. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much for being here today. And I want to take this moment to thank the organizers as well. Like, what a great thing to see such a beautiful full room of New Democrats. This fills my cup. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in Toronto, what's happening across this country. In Toronto, we have not elected a New Democrat since 2015. And that has to change. Every election, what do the Liberals tell people in Toronto? You've got to vote for us or the Conservatives win. Every election, Conservatives. I know how to beat Conservatives. So in the next election, when folks come to you and they say, we got to vote for the Liberals, we got to vote for the Liberals to stop the Conservatives, that's not going to be the answer. The answer is going to be, we vote New Democrat to beat the Conservatives. That's who beats the Conservatives. That's what we're going to do in this next election. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tony McQuail. I've been farming for over 50 years. I've been a New Democrat for over 45, and I'm tired of wonderful policies that never really get to see the light of day. Our campaign is running on 4 R's: representation, regeneration, redistribution, and redesign. But representation is the first R, because until we figure out a way to beat the first past the post system, we're going to be in the same boat that the United Farmers and the Independent Labor and the CCF and now the NDP and the Greens are in, which is that we don't win because we're told we can't win because first past the post makes that possible, and it's been keeping the elites in power. The timer isn't working now. So what we have to do is recognize that changing the system and figuring out a strategy and tactics that let us build a green progressive movement that really then speaks to people in terms of a real opportunity and choice, so that instead of people voting strategically, they vote for us.
Thank you. Oh, it's me. Sorry, I was worried my mic was going to die. I'm running on free post-secondary education, eliminating student debt, a guaranteed livable income, and a living wage. I want a Canada where students can choose to study based on your passion and not based on capitalism. I'm committing to ending fossil fuel subsidies and moving that money into public transit, green housing, and unionized jobs.
Hi, everyone. Our campaign has been focused on the everyday emergency of just getting by in an impossible economy. And it's hardest for young people. AI is already stealing your future. The price of everything is out of control. Food, shelter, transportation, education, and we know why it's happening. Le coût de la vie, c'est la crise quotidienne, une crise causée par un marché que nous échouons. C'est pourquoi le gouvernement doit intervenir. That's why we're calling for public ownership in the economy. A Canadian Green New Deal with 1 million green jobs, including a huge youth climate corps, an electric bus revolution and free transit, unionized jobs across all of these sectors. 92% of Canadians believe monopolies are driving up prices. These are incredibly popular policies. This is how we win.
What is unique about your plan to truly address the cost of living crisis and make the NDP the only choice for voters in the next election? We'll start with Heather McPherson.
That's true. The deal is broken. The deal that said that if you worked hard, if you had a good job and you worked hard, you'd be able to afford a home, you'd be able to raise your family, you'd be able to live with dignity in this country. That's broken. And what we need is to declare a national housing emergency. You can visit our website at heathermcpherson.ca to learn more.
The only people cashing is the CEOs, not the working class. We have to cap the prices on essentials, groceries, cell phone bills, telecommunications, that stuff, to drive prices back up, to steal from us so that they can fill their pockets. Thank you.
I think what distinguishes our campaign is a frank affirmation that public ownership is a solution. Sure, price caps in the short term, but when you have a moment of market failure, where the market is failing to deliver the basics of a dignified life, food, shelter, communication, transportation at a price that people can afford, the government must intervene.
So common ground, absolutely. And fully support our public options. I think they're amazing. Where I want to go a little bit further is ensuring that when we're thinking about these things and we're implementing them, we are not forgetting our rural and remote communities.
First thing you said a minority NDP government would do would be bringing a citizens' assembly on proportional representation. The second priority is a citizens' assembly on the principles of a fair tax system. So this is all multi-solving.
The public transit piece makes so much sense, and we need that across this country. And that happened because we've had, liberal and conservative governments failing to invest in the infrastructure that we need in this country. Yeah, not even buses, but let's talk about rail. Let's talk about other methods of transportation that doesn't just move people. Let's complement our other services like Canada Post and build structures that our other public services can use that aren't a one service only deal. Yeah, postal banking.
You're right.
Yeah, postal banking. Also, another fabulous public service, and we can complement it with the credit unions that we already have in our country.
We need clear positions. This is a time when we need moral clarity. When a genocide is still going on every single day in Gaza, where 5 people have been killed by Israel every day since the so-called ceasefire took place, this does have relevance in the question of affordability, because we need to be able to tell the truth to people in clear language that they can understand. And the transportation has to be free, Rob, right? Not just affordable. Okay.
100%.
Getting back to consensus.
Okay, where are our priorities is so critical, and militarism is one of the places where we have to ask, why are we spending money on ways that we can kill each other when we can already wipe ourselves off the planet with nuclear weapons? Our campaign has called for an immediate embargo on selling Canadian weapon systems and support to the United States.
So are you connecting that to people's daily lives?
Yeah, because militarism is the way you keep spending money on stuff you don't need and don't spend money on stuff we do need.
Thank you.
And we don't have the industry.
The housing crisis is complex. It often requires cooperation between different levels of government, and new housing can't be built in a day. How does your housing plan speak to voters who need solutions now? We'll start with Heather McPherson.
So listen, we've got to take the investment out of housing. We've got to make it so that people are not using housing to make money, that they are using housing to live in. Let's get rid of the REITs. Let's make sure that there is tenant protections across this country, that there is a renter's bill of rights for everyone.
I want to build homes for people, not for some rich developer just to make more money off our backs. And we are the party of the working class, especially when it's led by me.
Nice one, Rob. That was a good one. That was a move. That was an innovative last line. Look at that. Liberals and conservatives have tried to incentivize our way out of a crisis. And again, we have to be really clear. The market is not going to solve a crisis that the market created. No way. So we need to be talking about a public developer employing public construction companies to build all of this non-market, supportive, co-op, nonprofit housing. It's got to be public. It's got to be all in the public sphere. Corporate landlords right now are using algorithmic pricing tricks to synchronize rents across many, many buildings. Ban that shit. That's got to be gone.
You're going to find again that we kind of agree on how we want to approach housing. It's got to be public. It's got to be co-op. It's got to be varied. But it also comes down to what those rooms look like. How wide is that doorway? Is it only accessible by stairs, or is there an elevator? How high are the countertops? How many rooms are there? Is it going to fit my auntie and her 6 kids? We need to build a diverse housing that's going to work for everyone, and housing that doesn't do further damage to the planet. Let's make sure we're insulating super well. Let's make sure they're all coming with heat pumps. Let's make sure there's solar panels on those roofs. We can build housing better than we ever have, and we can do it in such a great way that families can call them their homes and be proud of where they're living, and we can do it in an affordable way.
Well, I've been waiting for an NDP federal government for 45 years. And this says we need solutions now. So until we rebuild the base, the foundation, the riding associations, and our connections to people across this country, don't hold your breath on all these wonderful ideas.
People that can afford the rent they're in, and then they kicked out. So the landlord, the rich corporate empire landlord, can redesign and remodel it and double their rent. This is what I swear, but I'm not going to.
It comes right down to it. You know, Tony's right. 5% on defense spending and half what they promised on housing. If we actually believe that housing is a human right, we have to treat this as the national emergency it is that allows us to mobilize resources. That's the thing that we can do to get really going on housing and really come up with solutions.
If you want to see housing move, partner with your nations. If you want to build housing fast and in a good way, partner with your nations. Right now, we do not have governments that are going and building relationships with nations and saying, what do you got on your books that you want to get done? How can you help us get out of this economic crisis? We're walking up to them and saying, hey, we've got this project that we want you to do, and we want you to do it on your land, how we want to do it. Are you game? Like, that's not how this works.
Housing is nation building in a way that pipelines, nuclear reactors, and mining are not.
You've got 10 seconds each.
Tony.
Where is your favorite place the campaign has taken you and that you've never been before?
Well, I stayed home because part of my redesign is not traveling and using up fuel.
Heather.
Okay, honestly,
Hold the applause, please. Heather.
Honestly, I was in Prince Albert this week. I was in Prince Albert, and PA is awesome. We had such a fun time. There were tons of people who came out. You know, that's what building this party is about. It's going into all of these communities and talking to New Democrats. I'm going to the Maritimes, hopefully tonight on a late night flight. I've got 9 stops in 72 hours.
Rob. Yep.
Sudbury, Ontario. Amazing place with amazing workers in there. People that fight for everything they've got.
The New Flyer bus factory in Winnipeg, Canadian Steel coming in on board, Unifor workers making electric buses for the electric bus revolution we need across this country.
Next up, if you weren't running for NDP leader or doing any job you've done previously, what job would you be doing right now? Tony.
I'd be baking cookies with my grandkids.
Heather.
Okay, I've always really wanted to be a beekeeper. I would be a beekeeper. Tony, you can teach me how.
Tanille.
I'd be a lawyer.
Rob.
Be one of the Backstreet Boys.
Avi.
I didn't get the memo about fantasy jobs, so I think there's real work we need to be doing. I think I start a YouTube channel and try to recapture the manosphere and bring some young men back to the left.
What is your most used emoji, Tony?
I'm too old to use emojis. But I have figured out the heart.
Heather.
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one. I think it's this one, the guy that goes.
Tanille.
If I take out the orange heart, it might be an eggplant.
No! Spicy! Whoa!
I'm a really honest person!
Whoa!
Rob.
What are you talking about?
That's not mine, but I'll go with the laughing face.
And Avi.
It's a fist! The fist on high.
Back to serious questions here. As the rich get richer, the NDP's legacy of strengthening Canada's strong social safety net is needed now more than ever. What differentiates your plan from the other candidates to ensure all Canadians can live with dignity?
So listen, the thing that I'm most worried about with our safety net right now is the attack on our public healthcare system. You know, it's what makes us Canadian. It's something we all need to be fighting for. That's my biggest worry right now in our social safety net.
Our unemployment rate rose to 6.8% in December. People lose their jobs, and it's hard for them to get onto employment insurance. And if you have a disability and you try to get onto our disability program in this country, good luck. And if you do, you get $200 a month. So our plan is to raise it, and this is not even close to enough. Our plan is to raise it up to $1,000 a month when we form government.
Eyes, teeth, mental health, medicine, they're all part of your health. They should all be part of our single-payer healthcare system. We have to fight for it all. Investing in the care economy. More than 3 million people, mostly women, 75% women, working in healthcare, education, long-term care, and childcare. We don't have a functioning social safety net with care because we underpay and undervalue those precious workers who hold our society together. They need a massive raise and they need it now. 90% of Canadians support a tax on wealth. A 1% wealth tax on the 1%, just that measure, $25 to $40 billion a year. We're going to fight for it. We're going to win those things because we're going to go for the whole thing instead of incremental proposals.
A guaranteed livable basic income will provide Canadians with the dignity to survive. It's a minimum standard that we have to have in Canada. I fully support a wealth tax, but I would love to see it get a little bit bigger. So not just a 1% for the 1%, but perhaps the more you make, the more you pay would be phenomenal to make that happen. Safety is so vital to our ability to be Canadians. And so when I'm saying this, I'm thinking about our lack of bold response to what is happening in other countries. If we as Canada are going to be a country that says we stand up against genocide within our own borders, we have to do that when that work is happening in horrific ways outside of our borders. And we have to be better in that. So safety inside of ourselves, but safety outside of our borders as well.
45 years ago, we could have been incremental in the environment and in terms of creating a healthier, more equitable, distributive economy. That time has passed for both the environment and our society. So we're calling for both a progressive wealth tax, so it might start at 1%, but it's going to get higher, and a much more progressive income tax. When I first went in 1980, Google says there were maybe 5 billionaires in Canada. Now they say there's over 70 billionaires. That's a 1,400% increase. And you know what? I don't think living's gotten that much easier for most people.
AI is contributing bigly to that. Making more billionaires? Yeah, real easy with AI. I want to touch on the Canadian Health Act. That act has been stripped of all accountability. I'm a big champion of nurse-to-patient ratios across the country. We're doing it in BC, but there's no reason why a nurse in BC should be able to have a patient ratio and a nurse in Ontario shouldn't. That's not fair. So
There's people with addiction issues. We have to have wraparound care for people with addiction issues.
So my question is, youth across Canada have been hit the hardest by this job crisis. For example, in Ontario, youth unemployment is at 17.8%, a near record high. What is your plan to fix the job market for young Canadians?
Let's have a program that's year-round, where young people get actual real work experience, where they get experience in things like our green economy, in trades, in the care economy, that is well-funded, well-supported. We looked at, of course, we want free university. There's 24 countries in the world that have free university. We should have that in Canada. But let's expand it to apprenticeships, so that if folks want to go into the trades, there's a grant program for that.
We need to pause AI development in Canada and pause those data centers. We're talking about a moratorium on them because they're stealing youth jobs first and foremost. Of course, we need free post-secondary education. We've been fighting for it for a long time. We need to cancel student debt as well.
Imagine the $30 billion a year that are currently given in subsidies to the oil companies. And imagine instead that was offered out to community groups and organizations across the country from sea to sea to sea.
Our youth, when they come out of school, massive debts. So yeah, everybody up here is going to agree. No more tuitions. Not for our young ones.
We need those AI protections ASAP. That stuff is crazy. It's going to destroy our planet and it's wrecking our jobs. The other thing we need to be very mindful of and look to curb is automation. Automation is the other thing that's seeking to destroy our opportunity for jobs. I'm not saying no automation ever, never, but we have to be very smart about how we're using these tools, very smart about automation, and very smart about AI.
And the Good Jobs Promise guarantees a good job that everybody wants. We're going to produce homes, which puts people to work, Canadians to work. We're going to tie public funding to good wages, training, job security.
That's why we also need to revise and fix our EI system to meet the needs of what our economy looks like right now, what jobs look like for people in our communities. That's another important thing we have to do.
Public ownership is absolutely essential. And when we're talking about the dignity of young people today, I teach climate justice. People, young folks are scared. They have a sense of claustrophobia coming into this scary world. We need a political party and a government with moral clarity to name genocide, to stand up to the United States.
30 seconds.
I haven't gone yet, Tony.
We've got to spread our arms wide so that people understand when we're talking about work, we're talking about unionized and non-unionized and waged and unwaged. In our society,
Can I have the last 10 seconds?
we work, sure,
We've got to win to do any of this. We've got to win. We have to organize. We need free memberships to open up our NDP doors so wide so we can build our party and go slay in the next election so we can do any of this stuff that we just talked about.
Absolutely. And the green transition. How will you convince working class Canadians that your plan protects their livelihoods and proves that New Democrats can be trusted to manage Canada's economy during this period of upheaval?
Listen, I'm from Alberta. You know, we have lived a boom-bust economy for generations, and it sucks. And it sucks for workers. You know, when Algoma Steel got $500 million and then laid off 1,000 workers right before Christmas, you know, there needs to be strings attached to that stuff. There needs to be protections for workers. You know, the last people to get laid off are the workers, not the first. You know, we've got to come up with a plan that brings workers with us.
Yeah, we have to be really straightforward and clear. We must get off fossil fuels as quickly as possible, not just to address the climate breakdown, but to address the fact that we can't go through another boom and bust, as Heather has said, and we're headed for another one now with the United States taking over Venezuela's oil. That's why we need a Green New Deal on an emergency basis to build those new industries, heat pumps in every home, an electric bus revolution, power lines, not pipelines, a 21st century grid with Canadian steel and unionized jobs. We need to build those new industries immediately.
So we certainly need a local grid. But we also have to say, do you really think these assholes have been taking you where you want to go? I have 4 Ds as part of my thing. And I say that for 45 years of watching these people preach growth and stability at us. Growth of environmental destruction and stability so the rich can get richer is where we need to go. How come it says 1 second there and it's buzzing?
We're still getting used to the technology here.
Because the key to this message is that a transition into a green economy must bring workers along with it.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just reading. It says that your plan protects their livelihoods. And I just want to offer that this is our plan. The feedback has to come from the working class. It has to come from the people and feed into us. So that when we make these changes, we are bringing everyone along together. Everyone is feeling heard, supported, and excited about transitioning because the word transition is scary for a lot of people. For most people, it means they're going to lose their job or it's going to get shrunk down to something that's meaningless, that doesn't, it's not feeding their passion anymore like it used to. So
I'll tell you the only government that, sorry, go ahead.
You go on. No, you go.
All right, so the only government that actually knows how to actually give money to employers and have a net benefit for workers was the Nova Scotia NDP. In 2011,
you know, these build big projects. We've got to make sure that we are using Canadian labor, Canadian materials, and that those projects, you know, aren't pipe dreams. Yeah. Just see what I did there? But in fact, are actual concrete things that our communities need, like high-speed rail, you know, like investing in the renewable energy that we need across this country. Big nation-building projects are hospitals. They're care facilities. Those are nation-building projects that we should all be working on with Canadian labor, with Canadian materials. And to do that, can we build childcare while we're at it? Yes, we can. So many people would just love to go back to their job if we can have some support to help care for our tiny humans. If we really wanted to have an immediate injection into our economy, we would stand up childcare facilities across the country for free and just let people go back to work. It'd be absolutely amazing.
These are ways of making Trump-proofing our economy, of returning independence to the Canadian economy, and we can do it under public ownership, create green jobs, and show people that we can make this transition exciting thing, Tony.
But we also, having driven into Toronto tonight, you don't want all those vehicles as electric vehicles, friends, or they're going to be too damn many batteries and not a good planet to live on because we produced them. We've got to redesign to use less energy and fewer resources and build stronger communities.
Each candidate will ask another candidate a question of their choosing. The responding candidate will have 30 seconds. The candidates were told in advance who they are asking a question to and who was asking a question to them. But they do not know the question that will be asked. Start with Tanille Johnston, who will be asking question to Heather McPherson.
Okay, so it's cool because you went here a little bit earlier. So there's a lot of talk of military spending, threats from Trump, and that Canada needs to be defense ready. So as leader, how do you balance progressive internationalism with investments in our military? Well, I'll tell you what you don't do. You do not spend 5% on military spending at the same time that you cut $2.7 billion for international development spending. I'll tell you what you don't do. You don't appease the guy down south when he invades another country and breaks international law.
Avi Lewis asking Tony McQuail.
Tony. Avi. Time and again, Liberals have betrayed Canadians by promising electoral reform and then walking it back. Justin did it in 2015, the last time. You and I agree that there's an incredibly urgent need. And I've said that if we ever have the balance of power in a clear way again, we go in with one demand, and that is proportional representation, the reform that leads to all the others. But in the meantime, what are your concrete ideas for dealing with the failures of first past the post?
Well, Avi, I've been calling for building a green progressive coalition. And, you know, in our parliamentary system, if by some miracle the NDP, the Greens, and the Bloc ended up with 51% of the seats, they'd have to figure out what they would do as a government. I've been saying, figure it out 3 or 4 years before the friggin' election, and then create a platform that you'll run on and only have one candidate per riding on that platform so people can vote strategically for that platform and not liberals and conservatives.
So, we all agree on tuition fees, eliminating tuition fees. And, I've tabled every parliament I've been in, I've tabled the Canada Education Act, which actually makes tuition the priority of the transfer, the federal education transfer. So for me, we're proposing expanding that to include apprenticeships, Indigenous training for culturally appropriate pathways, additional support for apprentices needing travel or specialized tools. Would you support the transition? And what other ways would you like to see us expand post-secondary education and training for young people?
Yeah, totally. And I think, so when I say post-secondary education, I literally mean everything. I'm not separating out if you do a trade or if you're not. If you're going to a college or a university, I'm not separating those out. If you want to pursue higher education, you should be able to pursue that in whatever faculty you're interested in.
Well, Rob, the NDP is in a pretty weak place at the moment. And how would you see rebuilding the base, which I think of as the riding associations across the country, rural, urban, east, west? How would you see really revitalizing and rebuilding that foundation?
Ground level, rank and file leadership. We have to be less of a top-down organization, more of a bottom-up organization. We have to have channels of communication between EDAs across this country and head office or central or whatever you call it nowadays.
Rob Ashton, you have a chance to ask Avi Lewis.
This is fun.
The North Coast Transmission Line will support the mining of critical minerals required for electrification and unlock $50 billion for BC's economy and workers. BC NDP recently passed legislation allowing the project to proceed with an ownership stake for First Nations. As a federal leader, will you stand in the way of that project, or will you support the BC NDP's plan to get it built alongside First Nations?
Well, it depends on what it's used for. We have a big country and a lot of regional differences. And if that project is for public ownership for mining for critical minerals, if that's an Indigenous real co-production and not like a cover story, that's one thing. If it's to fuel LNG, it's another thing.
From Etobicoke to Scarborough, North York. Come on, I wanted to hear some Scarborough. Yeah. From Etobicoke to Scarborough, North York to Toronto Island. Toronto is made up of many different communities. Before Mark Carney was elected leader of the Liberal Party, polling showed that the NDP would win between 4 to 6 seats in Toronto. As we all know, we didn't win a single seat. How do you plan to win a seat in Toronto? We'll start with Heather McPherson.
We need to be working on the success that we are seeing from the incredible MPPs in this city. Dolly, I'm looking at you. Honestly, the provincial parties across this country are doing well. They're doing great. And that involves making sure that riding associations Riding associations have the freedom and the ability to use the messaging that works for their riding. Because what works in downtown Toronto, maybe that's not the same thing that works in Tanille's riding.
Year-round organizing. It's every day, not just election day. We lose momentum so fast as a party. The election's over and then we're just, boop, and we wait and wait and wait and wait. But we could be that incremental wave all year long. And waves break down the biggest rocks in the world. So we can do that work, but it has to be every single day. We have to lean into our campus clubs, our student unions, our different advocacy groups in our various cities, our pride collectives, your nations. I know U of T's got a rock star crew that goes out provincially and door knocks. Our crew federally, we can do better. So we need to fix that, and we can, but we need to build relationship and trust to do it.
Is you have to go out and, as Tanille says, keep working at it. It's got to be something you're doing all the time. It's got to be something you're doing with any provincial organizations that you have. It's got to be something you're doing by having potlucks and spaghetti dinners and inviting people who aren't New Democrats to those and talking to them about what we could be doing on their behalf as a federal government, which we don't see the Liberals and Conservatives doing.
Because we forgot how to communicate with the working class. We forgot to go to schools. We forgot to engage campus clubs. We forgot to pack the old soapbox around so we can put it on the ground and stand on this, but I'm afraid it's hollow.
Yeah.
But to stand on this, to have our voices heard above theirs, because the ruling class, the Conservative Party, has taken our playbook. We have to take it back. We have to show up year-round, not just during campaigns like everybody else has said. And we have to root the party in lunchrooms, in classrooms, and in hospitals.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have to unleash the power of EDAs. We could have 343 community organizing hubs that are organizing not only around the year. The federal party in the last generation has more or less abandoned suburban and rural seats. And we have to campaign absolutely everywhere. Dolly, you represent what used to be called Scarborough West, my dad's old riding, provincially. That means addressing suburban communities and rural communities where they're at. And part of that means reimagining the working class. I can't wait to see Rob's work booths in the House of Commons. That's going to be a beautiful thing. And when we have not been speaking to those folks in the last generation because we have been focused on what we call winnable ridings. Every riding's got to be a winnable riding. When we unleash our base, they will be.
Our rural and remote ridings are so excited and amped to get into this next election. I know some folks here today that are from those suburb communities that are ready to rip. We are so feisty out there and ready to help that we are a total asset in the next election, and we need to work collectively with our urban centers to harness that and use it. And we need to start now. Subsidy, when you get over 30% of the vote in your riding, that subsidy, the majority of that needs to go back to that EDA. It cannot sit centrally. We need to.
I'll split it with you. So look, we need to elect a leader that knows how to lead a rank and file party. Bottom up leadership. And that's what I've done for the last 10 years. The rank and file tells the leader what to do. The leader takes care of it. That's how this party grows. A leader who knows how to earn trust the hard way.
I would go further. I think that one of the problems in our party in the last generation has been too much power concentrated in the leader's office. And a lot of these things that we're talking about are easy to talk about in principle, but our Constitution is a very democratic document. And it says that the highest decision-making body is the convention of all the members. We need to make that true at convention.
Y'all have been so polite to one another. It's hard to imagine any of you in the House of Commons these days. I will point out that the question did circulate around how to win a seat in Toronto, not because it's the center of the universe, but because of the audience here and the organizers. But I will say that you all answered our next question, which will give you a time to elaborate on your answers. NDP underwent a review of the 2025 campaign, and a report of the review was recently released. How will the experiences of candidates, many of which are here, active supporters, even more of which are here, and riding associations change under your leadership?
It has been my priority since I was elected, well before I thought I would be putting my name forward for the leadership. We all have an obligation to start building out our party. It's the reason that I have door knocked in almost every province in this country. You know, whether it is in Windsor, whether it is in Skeena Valley, like I have been working to build the party for as long as I've been elected and well before that as well. And I think we all need to be doing that. That's the work that we all need to be doing.
One of the first reach outs I did when I was planning to run for leadership was to previous candidates that ran in the last federal election.
Yeah.
I felt exactly what it was like to be a candidate in that election, running in a rural riding that's 56,000 square kilometers huge as a new candidate, getting messaging from the central party and having to manage that messaging in such a conservative riding was really challenging for me. It was quite an isolating feeling. Running as a candidate. And I wanted to hear from other candidates what their experience was, because if I was going to be leader, that's key to understanding how we can mobilize better. And I mean, as heartbreaking as a lot of those conversations were, there's solutions to that. We can acknowledge and support the experts that those candidates are in their ridings. The EDAs choose their person. That's the person that represents them the best. And we as a party needs to collectively respect that and uplift that and create solid communication channels in order to support them with the types of messaging and materials that they need to rock it in their riding.
Tanille, we're trying to get you on a plane in about an hour and a half.
As somebody who's been a candidate federally 5 times and provincially twice, I've become increasingly concerned that the party centrally seems more interested in raising funds than raising consciousness. We're going to be holding a series of workshops, and one of the workshops will be on how to strengthen local riding associations. What are our weak links? What do we need to be focusing on? And that'll be context specific to each of you. I hope if you think you're in a really effective riding association, Heather, maybe folks from yours, will come out and share what you're doing, because it's the ability to share, to cooperate, to collaborate, to support each other that will help us build the grassroots movement at the ground level that can reach out to our neighbors who aren't New Democrats yet and bring them in.
The leadership race comes down to a hard truth. We lost the trust of the working class, full stop. Not because we stopped our ideals or we stopped believing in our values, but because they stopped seeing us fight for them. If we're going to rebuild the NDP, we have to get back to the basics. A party rooted in workplaces, not in boardrooms. A party rooted in schools. A party rooted in its membership. And a party rooted bringing people in. But how have I led this? How have I led my union? It's by listening first and building people's trust, and by standing beside them every single day.
Well, I'll start with something specific. If I'm honored to be elected as leader of the federal NDP, I promise that no federal NDP candidate will be canceled for having views that are supportive of Palestine. Our special sauce is that we can articulate a vision of dignity for working class people across this country. We can communicate it clearly, we can describe it in detail, and then we can organize our asses off to win it. And that's how we're going to come back. That's how our experience as members, as candidates, and as leaders will change. But we have to trust our members.
Quite simple, stop sending 5,000 emails a day.
Yeah. We're going to have an app, right, Rob? We're going to have an app, right?
Apps might be a good idea. We still got to email and beg y'all for money. Come on. But what we have to do is we have to go back to sitting down with you. We have to go back to walking into a grocery store and saying, hey, how you doing? By the way, my name's Rob Ashton.
And it's one of the things, we talk about organizing all year round. Like, let's not forget, we've got this movement. We've got organizers in every corner of this country, sitting down and having meetings with folks and having, 50 New Democrats in a room in Regina last night was so fun. We need to be channeling that. We need to be working with our provincial parties, making sure that every single member that is working on the provincial NDP work is also working with us, that we're working together, we're lifting each other up.
I swear we do it with the ideas. When we lead with ideas and we inspire our base and we set people on fire, that's when they come out and that's when they want to work. And
we have to reach beyond our membership too. Like, I get it, like we're hammering you with emails like crazy because we kind of have access to your email addresses, but everybody votes. And so many people that I know from care industries, from not-for-profits, from social service organizations are terrified to be registered with a party. Do they vote NDP? 100% they do. Will they donate to the party? Yes, they will. but you won't find their name on our membership list because they're terrified. They're terrified that we're going to end up with a liberal or conservative government that's going to destroy their job and come after them as a human being. So we have to reach beyond our members. We got to go to libraries. What a beautiful public space to meet people and engage with. Our librarians are phenomenal.
I get very uncomfortable when I hear all the, we're fighting for you. I want to be working for you, but even more importantly, I want to be working with you. Because that's how I have found building organizations in communities and building some organizations across Canada, is when we work with people and empower them to feel a part of it, it works.
It is an honor to stand with my colleagues on this stage. We have our differences, but we make each other better by debating them. And honestly, it has been absolutely thrilling to be part of this race. I've crisscrossed the country watching crowds get bigger and bigger as we go on, watching small donations roll in from large numbers of people in communities across the land, seeing lifelong NDPers renewing their memberships for the first time in a very long time, meeting people like I did last night in Nanaimo who knew next to nothing about the party, and they left with a brand new membership and new friends and their first volunteer shift already booked. People are hungry for change in this country. They're ready to be trusted by us first before we ask them to trust us back. They need to find their own voice and agency, and people are so ready for that moment. People are hungry for hope. Our campaign is lighting that fire. We're showing that the NDP can make itself clear. We can advance popular solutions and a confident vision. This is how we win.
Listen, when I look at our party, what I want to see is every single person across this country who wants to take care of their neighbors, every single person who wants to have a good public healthcare system, every single person around this country that wants to lift up their communities. They should see themselves as part of our party, as part of our table. They should feel welcome. That's my goal. Because you know what? We all stood up here tonight. We all stood up here, and we have a lot of the same ideas. You know, we're New Democrats. We believe the same things. We believe in taking care of each other. But you know what? Unless we win, unless we can win more seats and elect more New Democrats, none of the things we're proposing can happen. We have to be able to win. That has to be our unabashed goal. Because when we win, when New Democrats win, we don't use our power for our friends. We use it to get things for Canadians. We make life better for Canadians.
Tanille Johnston.
Oh, that's me. Sorry, it's kind of hard to hear. I just want to say thank you so much for hosting us. This has been absolutely amazing. What I get asked often is how I separate myself out. What am I going to offer that's different? I don't know if physically you can tell, but I'm from a different generation than my cool humans up here. I've got a wicked amount of energy. If you haven't picked that up yet, I love to do this all day long, and I'm going to do it all day long for the next 72 hours. Because that is the type of energy we need in order to build the steam behind our people across this country. We have to be everywhere all day long. There's no rest for the wicked right now. Like, this is our time. This is our moment to seize it, inspire people across Canada, and build our momentum so we absolutely slay in the next election. So, Gayla Kesla, thank you.
It was all so civil until that comment. But I agree, we are from a different generation, Tanille.
Perhaps from another different generation, but my friends, we're going to have to throw our arms wide so that the 99% understand that we are with them and for them. We are also going to have to be realistic about dealing with the logjam that we face and that we've faced ever since we got the vote after the First World War, which is our first past the post system. We have to develop a strategy, because if we don't provide something that makes people think we can win, they don't end up voting for us. And so that's something that I believe we have to face realistically. And that means creating an understanding of a green progressive platform. And I call it green progressive because, they've had over 100 years to smear socialism and democratic socialism and national socialism. We have to talk to people so they understand we're talking about something that works for people and the environment.
We live in one of the richest countries in the world. We can have a quality of life that gives us hope that our children will have a better one than we did. That's the Canada that I believe in. And that's the Canada I'm fighting for. I believe in an NDP that speaks plainly and shows up everywhere and isn't afraid of a fight. An NDP that stands proudly with working people and fights like hell for them. See, I'm not a career politician. I'm a worker. I spent my life organizing, listening, and taking on the ruling class to win real change. Because call me crazy. The only reason a government exists is to make life easier, not harder. And I'm done watching the workers be on the menu. I'm done with the ruling class eating us alive. The NDP was founded to give regular people a voice. That's what makes us different, and that's what unites us.
Thank
We
you
want to
very
rebuild
much.
trust, win seats, and put people back where they belong, in the halls of power.
Thank you.
Mes amis, je suis prêt.
Thank you very much.
All right.